Baldur's Gate 3 is a fantasy RPG based on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It offers many ways to build your character and allows for many strategies to approach the many combat encounters. Alongside the fighting, players face countless choices that can significantly shape the story. But what if we removed those choices and left everything to chance? Meet Evan, a Dark Urge human, whose every decision will be determined by a roll of the dice. He has no control over his fate, whether he chooses mercy or violence, wisdom or foolishness. It's all in the hands of luck. Can he survive with no control over his decisions? Let's find out. Here are the rules for the challenge. It'll be on Tactician difficulty, using a Dark Urge character, no inspiration, no consumables besides healing potions. Every time you're given a choice, it must be random through a dice roll. This includes dialogue, stats, spells, classes, etc, etc, etc. The only exception will be during combat, where I can decide how to fight, but I'll be limited to the random abilities that are assigned to me. Now it's time for our character creation. For starters, we roll a 4 to become a human, and roll again for our class, and we rolled a 6, which makes our character a monk. Our background remains the Haunted One as a Dark Urge. When it comes to ability points, I asked ChatGPT to randomize them, as there is a cap on how high or how low stats can be, so dice rolling was not practical. Our final stats were 10 strength, 12 dexterity, 13 constitution, 14 intelligence, 15 wisdom and 11 charisma. For skill proficiency, I rolled an 11 to improve insight and a 2 to improve our acrobatics. I then randomized the appearance and named him Evan. And it was time to start our journey. We begin inside a Mind Flayer Nautiloid and are looking to escape. We venture forth before being confronted by a Githyanki named Lae'zel. She offers to fight alongside us as we both want to escape. Later, we find another person named Shadowheart trapped inside a pod. After a long, hard think, Evan decides to leave Shadowheart behind. We reach the helm and a Mind Flayer instructs us to connect the transponder so we can escape with them. We're easily persuaded.
Do it!
With Lae'zel's words of encouragement. We reach the transponder, but things are never as easy as they seem. The dragonfire severely damages the Nautiloid and knocks both Lae'zel and Evan off their feet as it continues its descent. We catch a glimpse of a drow who may potentially have an important role in this story, before returning back to Evan, who is saved from his fall by a mysterious force. Act 1. The Struggle Within. Evan wakes up on the beach alone, with no memory of his former life, but a nice friendly tadpole in his head to keep him company. We head straight to the other side of the beach, where we see a familiar face.
You're the one who tried to free me on the ship. At least, you made the effort.
We sure did. Anyway, Shadowheart decides to part ways with us and we begin our ascent up the cliff, making sure to avoid any combat encounters. We approach a mysterious looking portal that has a man known as Gale, the Wizard of Waterdeep, trapped inside. We roll a 3 to give him a good old slap before rolling a 1 afterwards. And, well, that's the end of Gale for this story. At least we'll have something in our backpack to remember him by. On that note, we gained enough experience to level up again. I thought I would show you all how it looks when I level up. Each time I will roll a dice for individual class types, spells and abilities. It's quite a lengthy process, so from here on I'll just give you updates on how each character is looking at key points in the story, rather than showing each individual level up, because it'll become a bit redundant me showing you all the time. But I'm sure you'll understand by now how random our builds will get. Moving on, we encounter another character. They try to convince us that there's an enemy in the bushes that we should defeat, but even Evan won't fall for that one. We're able to break free from their grasp with our first major skill check and discover the elves' true identity.
My name's Astarion.
We roll a 3 to convince them to join our cause, and Astarion will now wait for us at camp. Next companion we will try to help is Lae'zel from earlier, and she appears to be in a bit of a bind. We connect thoughts through our Mind Flayer parasites, and what can I say, Lae'zel is quite persuasive once again.
You've got one chance. Join me or die.
Without hesitation, we join the fight. We make short work of the 2 tieflings. When it comes to recruiting Lae'zel, we roll a 3, which convinced her to join our party.
Call me Lae'zel.
With our squad assembled, it was time to work towards respecking them to have random stats like Evan. I kept both Astarion and Lae'zel at level 1 for this fight, as I couldn't randomise them yet. There wasn't too much strategy involved in this fight. I just spread out my party and then meleeed every enemy with the starter gear. Once defeated, we opened up the sarcophagus. A skeleton rises from inside. This skeleton is known as Withers.
We will see each other again at the proper time and place. Farewell.
Withers allows us to reset characters and also revive characters who have been defeated in combat. For the proper price, of course. We now make our way to the Emerald Grove, where we meet Zevlor, who wants us to help the Tieflings. But we roll a 2, so we decide just to ignore his request and continue onwards. Inside the grove, we meet another companion, the Blade of Frontiers, or Will for short. He shows us his skill level by beating up little kids.
Well met.
Will then informs us that there is someone named Karlach that he must defeat at all costs. By rolling a 2, we agree to join Will in his quest, and he joins our party. We continue to explore the grove, and we see Shadowheart once more. She hides a strange artifact from us, before we decide to leave her behind once more. Continue exploring the grove and meet some new faces such as Volo and Alfira the Bard. We help Alfira with her new song, and then meet some of the wildlife.
Terrific.
Moving outside the grove, we find a stray dog named Scratch, and we lead them back to our camp. I'm sure they'll be useful later on. Using the Featherfall spell, I'm able to head straight towards Karlach without fighting the gnolls up above. When we meet Karlach, Will has one thing on his mind.
That you're a devil. A gladiator in the archdevil Zariel's army.
But by rolling a 2 twice in a row, we're able to persuade Will to calm down and think about the situation. Karlach agrees to join us,
I'm Karlach, but you already knew that.
as long as we dispose of the Paladins of Tyr up on the hill. This will be our first major battle, so it's time to see how our gear and stats are looking. Feel free to pause the video to have a closer look. Evan's a level 1 monk, wizard and warlock, and we know his stats already. Karlach is a level 1 sorcerer, druid and bard, with 10 strength, 12 dexterity, 13 constitution, 11 intelligence, 15 wisdom and 14 charisma. Astarion is a level 1 cleric, monk and druid, with 10 strength, 10 dexterity, 11 constitution, 10 intelligence, 16 wisdom, 17 charisma. Will is a level 2 bard and level 1 paladin. He has 15 strength, 10 dexterity, 12 constitution, 14 intelligence, 8 wisdom and 16 charisma. So the battle begins. The initial plan was to separate the enemies to take them down individually. I used Sanctuary on Astarion, which essentially means he can't be hit by any attacks, but he can't attack others. I was hoping to block the doorway upstairs with him, but he wasn't big enough. At this stage, Anders is very powerful, so I tried to do a scummy move and push him off the edge, and I got humbled pretty quick. I tried again with Karlach using Thunderwave, and I don't think anyone could survive that fall. Paladins defeated, Karlach is finally free from Zariel's clutches for now. At this point, we take our first long rest. Evan is startled to see Alfira sneak up behind him.
I want to join you. To fight by your side. I want to help people. As you've helped me.
We roll a 2 and agree to have Alfira join our crew. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Well damn, Alfira gone, carry on. We attempt to hide the body and fail the dice roll. Evan didn't mind and went straight back to sleep like nothing even happened. We wake up to Karlach confronting us.
Were you involved in this?
but Evan is quite persuasive when he wants to be.
Your guilt is safe. For now.
After the first major battle, I realised it was time to upgrade my character's gear. I started in the Blighted Village, where I made sure to get the Infernal Medal for Karlach. Then I picked up the Haste Helm and the Fleet Fingers gloves. After that, we headed to Joaquin's Rest, where the buildings were on fire. Will shows us the power of 15 strength to kick open the door, and we rescue both the people that were trapped inside. Lorik reveals to us that Will's father, Duke Ravengard, has been taken captive by the Absolute, and we agree to help save him. For saving the two trapped people, we are rewarded with the Spellsparkler Staff. We encounter a red dragon alongside a Githyanki named Voss, who seems to be searching for a mysterious artifact. Hoping he would show respect for a fellow Githyanki, I send Lae'zel to approach him alone. Unfortunately, Voss quickly overpowers her upon discovering the Mind Flayer parasite in her head. The rest of the crew make a quick escape, and we decide to rest for the night. Back at camp, we're invaded by a Cambion and tell her to leave at once. She does not listen to us and instead introduces herself.
Call me Mizora. I'm Will's patron, the fount of his power.
Mizora informs us that Will did not follow the contract by sparing Karlach, and as a result, he must suffer an eternity of anguish. Will gains a nice pair of horns to help keep him in line as well. Evan also had a visitor that night.
Sceleritas fell. Your loyal and ever-adoring butler.
Sceleritas gives us a gift for slaying Alfira the other night. It is quite a useful cape that allows us to turn invisible once we defeat an enemy. Moving on, we head towards the Knolls in hopes of stealing the Zhentarim chest. I send Astarion in with Sanctuary, and then he is able to persuade the leader to leave him alone. This gives Astarion a golden opportunity to steal the chest and flee the scene. We then head to the Zhentarim hideout and hand over the chest to get some new gear. We gain the Harald crossbow and some new armor. Returning to the main quest, we make our way to the Goblin village. Our characters suddenly lose control of their bodies and start to see 3 significant shadowed figures appear before them. Thankfully, Shadowheart and her mysterious artifact come to our rescue. She tries to explain her significance to Evan, hoping he'll understand her value.
You need me at your side.
However, he decides she's not essential to the team, and we set off for the Goblin village without her. Our first stop is the trader. We buy the boots of aid and comfort, gloves of archery, Swazi shoes, and the returning pike. We then decide to poison all the alcohol because Evan is a menace, and it also means less goblins to deal with later on. Inside the Goblin camp, we encounter the first of 3 Goblin leaders. To prove our loyalty to the Absolute, we get our hand branded, granting us free rein to explore the area. My first stop is to rescue our good old friend Volo. Then I head to the walk pens in search of the druid Halsin. Instead, I find a bear, so naturally Evan throws a rock at it, only to learn that bears don't appreciate being pelted with stones. After a tough fight, we discover the bear was actually Halsin in his wild-shaped form, but unfortunately we defeat him, losing our chance to recruit him. Back at camp, I run into Volo and buy the Whispering Promise Ring from him. He then suggests he could help with the parasite by just digging it out. Of course, things go sideways and poor Evan loses an eye. Luckily, Volo makes up for it by giving us a replacement eye for the trouble. Evan's struggles continue as he is relaxing at night. He's ambushed by Lae'zel. Evan teaches Lae'zel a valuable lesson. Weapons aren't for threats, they're for actions. The night didn't end there, as during his sleep, a guardian appears before him. They reveal that they are the reason Evan survived the Nautiloid crash, and that we must work together to survive. The next day at the Goblin camp, we sneak around and steal some loot. We get the gloves of the Growling Underdog and the Spring Step boots. Then we make our way past Priestess Gut's room to get the Amulet of Misty Step. Continuing through the hallway, we reach a ladder which takes us down into the Underdark. In the Underdark, we'll continue to get better gear for our squad, starting with the luminous armor. We are then interrupted by a strange-looking man.
Well met, I am Raphael.
Before we know it, Raphael teleports us to a mysterious location, revealing himself to be a Cambion like Mizora. He offers his aid in removing our parasite, but we decline, and we're returned to the Underdark.
Such a tease.
I switch to Will as he has the highest strength stat, and we are able to pull out the very useful sword, Fala Aluv, which allows us to buff nearby allies or weaken enemies. Continue to explore the Underdark and head to the Myconid village to buy some things. We grab the Psychic Spark, the Amulet of Restoration and the Caustic Band. Then we head to the Arcane Tower to grab another important item. At the top of the tower you can destroy a stool to obtain the Club of Hill Giant Strength, which sets a character's strength stat to 19, which will be an essential piece of equipment for the rest of the run. With the club, that concluded all the items we needed from the Underdark, so we make our way to the Grim Forge. We are met with some resistance, but a simple Jedi mind trick is all that we needed to make it through safely. Once we arrive, we head straight to the Adamantine Forge to obtain some powerful defensive gear. To get this gear, we had to defeat a tough boss. But don't worry, I have a plan. By shooting the lever from a distance, we begin the battle with the high ground. Those well versed in the high ground know that this battle is already over before it began. I use the minor illusion spell to lure Grim onto the platform. They fall right into the trap. Now I simply shoot the forge lever from a distance and Grim takes some serious damage. Some reinforcements arrive, but it's nothing our ranged attacks couldn't handle. And all we had to do was rinse and repeat and Grim was defeated. Our reward is we get their helmet, which prevents you from taking critical hits. We also use the forge to create 2 sets of armor that are very strong. They prevent critical hits and also reduce incoming damage. We put the new armor to the test by challenging Nier and his squad to a fight. Karlach and Evan just kept dodging most of the attacks, which allowed me to slowly pick off all the enemies one by one. Our reward for this is arguably one of the best boots in the game, the Disintegrating Nightwalkers. They give you Misty Step and also prevent a lot of status effects relating to the ground. We also pick up the Sword of Screams. With our squad starting to become more formidable, we head back to the blighted village to the ogres. Evan decides it's best to just attack them. Evan's new armor makes him the perfect tank for this fight. Using the Create Water spell and Ray of Frost, we create a slippery ice surface to stall the ogres, picking them off one by one. Our efforts yield the Warped Headband of Intellect, which boosts any character's intellect to 17. We then make a quick stop with Dammon to repair Karlach, before heading back to the main quest to defeat the goblin leaders. First leader we face is Minthara, and by connecting our minds we see that Minthara isn't as bad a woman as we once thought, as she's being manipulated by a shadowy figure. She asks us to find the location of the grove by interrogating the druid Halsin, and we agree.
Excellent. Be sure not to kill him before he talks.
Whoops. When it comes to fighting Minthara, I made sure to turn on non-lethal attacks and just knock her out, as she could be more useful to us alive. We then head to Dror Ragslan. For this fight, I split up my party with Karlach and Will to provide support from the roof, and Evan and Astarion to be my tanks. I used the Shriek ability from the sword to reduce the enemy's chance of hitting us, and go to town. The only real threat in this fight is Ragslan himself. I was able to lure him to the roof by sacrificing Will. Then, once we dealt with the minions, I sent Evan to deal with him. I was able to push him off the edge to take most of his life points and then finish him off the following turn. When trying to escape the area, we are confronted by the final leader, Priestess Gut. I used the Shriek ability again and grouped my squad together. We are then able to out-damage the goblins and claim victory. To celebrate our triumph, Zevlor and the Tieflings decide to meet us at our camp for a party. What's a party without some alcoholic beverages? We chill with Astarion for a bit before making the most important decision of the run so far. We roll a 1.
Yes!
Evan decides to spend the night with Karlach and makes a move on her, pulling out his smoothest lines. Later, we mysteriously find Shadowheart's artifact in our pocket of all places. I wonder what happened to Shadowheart. sure this artifact won't be that important. Our last stop for gear is the Githyanki creche that Lizelle kept pestering us about. We sneak in the back and head straight to the trader to buy some important items for the rest of the run. We get the knife of the Undermountain King and the gloves of dexterity, which sets our character's dexterity stat to 18. Making our way further inside, we steal the Gith shard to avoid a combat encounter and head straight to Wargas. He informs us that we have something that belongs to him. Evan isn't swayed, but when Wargas calls in his manager, the Queen Blackith, Evan quickly agrees to hunt down the Dream Visitor from our artifact. The Dream Visitor seems well aware of Evan's intentions, and we get one last chance to turn it around. We roll a 1 and Evan does what Evan does best.
So, you are not to be trusted.
My queen spoke to me. You have failed.
Man, disappointing two people at once, that's a familiar feeling. Now, to more pressing matters, this fight was the hardest encounter I've had, and took me multiple attempts to get this right. The main strategy was to eliminate the other Githyanki and leave Wargas till last. The main problem is he has a lot of attacks per turn, so a simple 4v1 turned into a 2v1 quickly, as he could just eliminate Will and Astarion before I could heal them. This fight became a simple duel of fates. I had Karlach providing healing and range damage, with Evan up close. I needed luck to be on my side, with Wargas missing a few times, and then we could get the momentum we needed to take him out. With him defeated, we headed to the secret area in the creche and restored our health back at camp. I then backtracked and defeated the Githyanki in the previous room to get the Soulbreaker Greatsword. Back in the secret area, we head towards the Blood of Lathander. Rolling a 1, Evan steals it and activates the trap. All the odds seem to be against us. But there is no need to fear when Evan is here. A simple misty step got us out, and we made a run for it. We may have destroyed the creche, but that sounds like someone else's problem. Act 1 wraps up with our squad stronger, slightly less ethical, and definitely ready for the challenges that await. Act 2. The darkness beckons. Our team is starting to come along quite nicely. Evan is now a level 1 monk, level 1 wizard, level 2 warlock, level 1 ranger, and level 1 rogue. Karlach is a level 1 sorcerer, level 1 druid, level 1 bard, level 1 warlock, level 1 paladin, and level 1 fighter. Astarion is a level 1 cleric, level 1 monk, level 1 druid, level 2 in paladin, and level 1 barbarian. Lastly, Will is a level 2 bard, level 2 paladin, level 1 fighter, and level 1 rogue. Our journey into the Shadowlands begins, and Evan keeps up his antics by starting a needless fight with some absolute followers. We then call forth our guide, who will take us to Moonrise Towers. We are confronted by some Harpers on our journey. Evan has a sudden change of heart and attacks our guide and sides with the Harpers. With him defeated, we agree to meet the Harpers at the Last Light Inn. Upon arrival, we meet an older looking lady who doesn't take kindly to strangers. Fortunately for us, a young tiefling called Mole comes to our rescue, saying how trustworthy Evan is. If only she knew. With Evan free, we are able to explore the area, and Karlach reveals some important information to us.
Oh my god, soldier. That's Jaheira. The Jaheira. Years ago, over a century, Jaheira was part of a group that saved Baldur's Gate from Saravok, a Baalspawn trying to plunge the city into war.
With the foreshadowing complete, we head to the trader and grab the Cloak of Protection. We then meet up with Dammon once more to fix Karlach's infernal engine for the last time. With Karlach healed, we decided to rest for the night. We are greeted once more by Mizora, who informs us we must rescue an asset from the absolute cultists at Moonrise Towers. Mizora is so needy, I'm sure we'll get around to that at some point. Evan's rest is once more interrupted by none other than Sceleritas. He proposes to us that we will get a wonderful prize for slaying the cleric Isabel. After pondering the idea for a while, Evan agrees to his request.
Good, dear tainted one. Good.
Sceleritas just showcased the best Palpatine impression I've seen in a long time. Anyway, in the inn we see our good friend Raphael and the girl who saved us. We interfere as usual and discover that he is trying to propose a deal to Mole like he did with us. He just can't help himself, can he? Moving on, we head straight to Isabel as we must resolve the inner turmoil that Evan is facing. Isabel seems like a very lovely lady, but Evan's urge inside is starting to emerge. Luckily, we roll a 1 and are able to let go of the urge. For now. By showing restraint, Isabel blesses us, which allows us to walk through the Shadowlands. We also receive a lantern to aid us in the deeper shadows. All of a sudden, Sephiroth, a man known as Marcus, enters the fray. He wants to take Isabel away from us, but we can't disappoint our boy Sceleritas, so we won't let that happen. This fight was pretty straightforward. I went full defense mode and used the Shriek ability with my whole squad around Isabel to protect her. We then just focused attacks on one enemy at a time and picked up a very useful ring that allows us to cast the invisibility spell. More on that later. With the day saved, we have gained the trust of both Isabel and Jaheira. Man, if only they knew what Evan was capable of. They task us with infiltrating Moonrise Towers to take down the man known as Ketheric Thorm. It seems like a lot of work to do, so we decide to take a long rest first. What happens next? You'll just have to wait and see.
Tonight, the moment you close your eyes, your favorite person will be brutalized. It is too late. You ignored your urge, and now it is insatiable. She's as good as dead anyway. She won't be saved by the power of love. Not yours. Good night, sweet lord.
You already knew that.
I'm free! I'm free!
Oh, come on, don't give me that. We're here, we're alive, we're together.
Look at that. No fire.
I'll save you. I swear. Killed again. We needed them.
And the blade names you his prey.
Astarion. This can't be the end.
My name's Astarion. Turning your back on the needy to save your own skin? Maybe we'll get along after all. You know, I never pictured myself as a hero.
Hell!
Well met.
Really are no devil, are you? I've been deceived.
When the Grand Duke returns to the city, he'll hail his only son a hero.
Come closer, my depraved prodigy. Try on your new gin jams. They're a present from Father. It would be rude not to. Oh, such a strapping young behemoth. This form is the Slayer. you will do many naughty feats with it. Good night, sweet master.
Well, damn, this just shows that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who can hurt us the deepest, as they are the ones we let closest to our hearts. At this point, I was quite worried about how to turn this around, as I've just lost everyone on my team. I also don't think a one-man army is a feasible option with the build Evan currently has. But hard times create strong people. We pressed on ahead to Moonrise Towers, where we meet a familiar drow, one of which may be more important to me than I once thought.
I will not be slandered! General, you saw my reports. You know it's not my fault.
Night Warden Minthara, your crime is incompetence, and your sentence is death.
No! Please! Mercy! Please!
We will ensure that Minthara gets the mercy she deserves. By stealth attacking the questioners, we are able to avoid some dice rolls to save Minthara. Thankfully, we roll a 2 on the only dialogue option, and we begin our escape. Remember that ring from earlier? We use it now to cast invisibility on Minthara, and we can escape undetected. Once we are in the clear, Minthara agrees to meet us at our camp. Back at camp, we add Minthara to our party. We then respec Minthara into a level 1 Warlock, Wizard, Paladin, Ranger, Bard, and Monk. We also give her the best defensive gear we have to be our support character for Evan. With our team for Act 2 finalised, it was time to level up. We begin by heading to the pub, as where else would you go to solve all your problems? A few beverages later, and we are in a brawl. Evan was not in a good state to fight and was quickly dispatched. Luckily, we have Minthara now, and we make a run for it. Outside the bar, we can lure the Thorm to get stuck. For those familiar with RuneScape, this is the good old strategy called safe spotting. Many turns later, we finally defeat them. We head to the next Thorm, and I begin the conversation with Evan. While Evan is locked in the conversation, I switch to Minthara and simply use Thunderwave to send them flying out the window. The fall damage was more than enough to finish the fight. For the last Thorm boss fight, we had to do some preparation. First, we pick up all the bodies around the arena, and then I place them outside the building. This ensures that Malice Thorm would not be able to revive them during the fight. We were able to get lucky with our dialogue to persuade the nurses to attack each other and essentially make this fight a 2v1 scenario, which is ideal. The strategy for this fight was for Evan to deal melee damage and for Minthara to provide support through healing and also buffing his damage through soul branding. This is a unique ability that Minthara possesses. In a 2v1 scenario, it was almost impossible for us to lose, as I could just revive Evan with Minthara every turn. With all 3 Thorms defeated, we headed back to Moonrise Towers. We speak to Z'rell to continue the main quest and find out we must find a relic for Ketheric Thorm. After that, we visit the trader in the tower to get the Thunder Skin cloak and risky ring. Once more, Raphael comes to our aid to warn us of the dangers ahead, but we know what he's up to and proceed into the Temple of Shah. Inside the temple, we are attacked by some Dark Justiciars, and to the surprise of no one, we are very weak and cannot destroy the portals quick enough. As a result, I was overrun by enemies that just kept spawning in. By defeating an enemy, my cloak's ability activated, allowing Evan to turn invisible. We had no choice but to flee the scene and rethink our strategy. But suddenly, something happened. Something that has not happened in any of my previous playthroughs. Balthazar's minions came to the rescue and started fighting the Justiciars for me. They were not strong enough to take them all out, but they thinned the numbers significantly so I could pick the remainder off in small groups. I then decided it would be best to eliminate Balthazar now, while it was a 2v1 scenario. We unleash our new Slayer form for the first time and make quick work of Balthazar. The combination of extra health and multiple attacks will prove quite useful in future encounters. Making our way through the Shah Temple, we pick up the Dark Justiciar helmet, and then meet the danger Raphael warned us about.
What's this? Fresh entertainment?
We're able to persuade Yogir to leave us alone for now. This gives us time to prepare for the battle to come. I sneak to the edge of the area and attack the lone Meragon. This gives me multiple turns to take enemies out without being overwhelmed. We take out the Displacer Beast early and then lure enemies over one by one. Once Yurgir was all that remained, we snuck up behind him and initiated combat. Like the previous 2v1 combat encounters, this was no problems, as Evan could deal damage while Minthara provided support. For defeating them, we got the Hellfire hand crossbow. I then made my way back to Moonrise Towers to buy the near-misser hand crossbow. Once that was done, it was time to clear out the tower of all the enemies. I did this so a future encounter would be much easier, as every enemy would already be defeated. I could divide one big fight into multiple smaller fights, which was much more manageable for my small team. The most notable enemies were the Warden, Disciple Zrel, and Roa Moonglow. With those enemies out of the way, it was time to head back to the Shah Temple to obtain that relic that Ketheric Thorm required. We are sucked into what seems like another dimension, only to find out that the relic that we required was actually a person called the Night Song. As always, Evan has a decision to make, and luckily, this time, he decides to free the Night Song. She reveals her true form to us, and we now have a new powerful ally in Dame Aelin. We begin the assault on Moonrise Towers, and as I alluded to earlier, most of the enemies in this battle are already defeated. We finish off the stragglers and then talk to Jaheira. We are able to persuade her to join us in the fight against Ketheric.
How good it is to see you again, Ketheric.
For the fight on the rooftop, we utilize Jaheira's Ice Storm spell. This does some AoE damage and also makes the surface slippery, and hopefully will get some enemies to fall over and waste a turn. We then had to rely on Dame Aelin to tank the damage from Ketheric, while the rest of our crew focused on dealing damage. I then made the decision to hide Jaheira so she wouldn't die, and then I could have a chance to recruit her later on. Aelin then did the final blow on Ketheric, and he escaped for now.
Enough.
After cleaning up the remaining enemies, we speak to Jaheira. We roll a 3 and recruit her to our team.
Lead and I follow.
Jaheira's build is a level 1 cleric, level 3 monk, level 1 barbarian, level 1 ranger, level 1 rogue, and level 1 fighter. We will mainly use her for her dexterity, utilizing the 2 crossbows we got earlier. We continued to pursue Ketheric and made our way down into the Mind Flayer colony. Our first stop was to fill Mizora's request. Turns out the asset we needed to rescue was Mizora herself, and by rolling a 2, we eliminate her from the rest of the story. Moving on, we head to the depths of the colony, where the 3 shadowy figures from before are now revealed to us. They are Gortash, Orin, and Ketheric, each with their own netherstone that they are using to control an elder brain. We also see that Will's dad is under their control, but that's not our problem anymore. We have a fight with Ketheric to worry about. To start off, we use our invisibility spell on our good old friend Scratch the dog from earlier in the story. With him in stealth mode, we send Scratch all the way to Dame Aelin. Scratch is then able to rescue her and begin the battle. Our main threat in this fight is the Mind Flayer, who can stun our team, so I use Misty Step to get Evan right on the Mind Flayer early. I then use Aelin once more as a tank to keep Ketheric occupied, while my team dealt with everyone else. Once the minions were taken care of, I made sure to position my squad ready for the next phase of the battle. When I was happy with my squad's condition, I ended Ketheric. And so began the hardest fight of the run. Merkel, the Lord of Bones, is not to be trifled with. My initial plan for this fight was to focus on ranged attacks, while using the Darkness spell to make Merkel blind. However, the Call of the Damned move pulls everyone in and ruined that tactic. Up next was Evan in his Slayer form to be the tank, and that strategy also failed miserably. I then thought maybe a combination of casting water and the Witch Bolt spell for guaranteed damage could work. I was making decent progress, getting Merkel to under half health, but then it all fell to pieces once more. When Merkel gets to this amount of health, they can then absorb the necromite enemies and heal themselves. This was a disaster, as my team couldn't deal damage quickly, so I had to go back to the drawing board. I didn't want to stoop this low, but I didn't have any other choice. I made my way back to the trader and invested in some smoke powder bombs. I'm sure you all know where this is heading. Back to Merkel. I send in Minthara with the backpack and place it on the ground. Merkel falls right into the trap and ignites the backpack with their swing. And just like that, the fight was over.
Isabel!
We obtain our first netherstone from Ketheric and continue our quest to Baldur's Gate. Act 3. The hero emerges. We have finally arrived. Baldur's Gate is not far now. This is where the fun begins. It's to be expected now that Evan will have yet another sleepless night. This time we are confronted by some Githyanki who emerge from our artifact. We make a quick dash to the portal and head inside. It turns out that the Emperor is in danger from the Githyanki attack. Who is the Emperor, you may ask? They are the Dream Visitor from earlier who have been protecting us from the Mind Flayer parasite in our head. They asked for our aid to thwart the Githyanki forces, and we agree to help them. We make short work of the Githyanki. Well, the Emperor decides to give us a very long backstory about who they are. But essentially they are using Orpheus's power to break free from the Elder Brain's control, and have given this freedom to our party as well. The Emperor then asks us if we would like to evolve and use more illithid powers, but we roll a 2 and decline. In the outskirts of Rivington, we are met by a young girl who has lost their mother. Evan doesn't care one bit, and off we go. Our first stop is to meet Jaheira's allies in the city. We meet Gereldas, who is acting strange, and then we realise why. Some shapeshifters have taken over, and we are thrust into battle. After taking care of them, we are now in a situation where we cannot trust anyone, but Jaheira has a plan.
Tell me, what do you know of a man named Minsk of Rashomon?
We take a slight detour to the pleasure house, as finding trusting allies can wait for now. We pick up a pass into the city, and then meet our good friend Raphael once more. We gain some important information about the Orphic Hammer, which can break Orpheus free. This could be a useful option for us, as we could use his power without the Emperor. Raphael reveals its location as in the House of Hope, and then we tell him we are leaving. We utilize the pass we just picked up to gain access to the fortress. Once inside, we pass out, only to reawaken in a strange temple.
You have reached the time of majority, and you shall come into your birthright. But another seeks to disinherit you. Do not let her be your death. Your father loves you. You have already made us so proud. Slaughter your line. Become the last of your line.
We decide to rest, and our actions have not gone unnoticed. Jaheira knows who we really are, and decides to keep watch, so we don't get up to any mischief. The next morning, we arrive in the lower city. We let Jaheira take the lead in our quest to find Minsk. We gain access to the guild hall in search of any information we can find.
She won't tell us where to find Minsk? Someone else in her guild hall will.
Fortunately for us, we get the lead that we needed. Minsk is in the counting house, so that's where we'll go.
If there is one thing Minsk hates more than beasts with bad breath, it is those who are tricksome with the truth. and turnips. But you are no turnip.
Meet Minsk. He still seems very much himself to me.
The shapeshifters continue to be a thorn in our side and have deceived Minsk, but no matter, we will deal with them soon enough. We track Minsk down to the sewers.
Flop all you wish, little fish. But Minsk has caught you.
For this fight, I lured Minsk down the narrow pipe and then made sure to knock him out with a non-lethal attack. Once he was knocked out, I made a run for it to regroup. With our party now fully healed, we were able to take out the rest of the enemies. We then head to Minsk and talk to him. The Emperor tries convincing us that he's too dangerous to be left alive, but we have other ideas. Minsk reveals he has another very strong ally he wants to introduce to us.
You, this is Boo. And Boo, meet you. To glory, or glorious death.
With Minsk in our team, it was time to gear him up. We head to Dammon and buy the Armour of Persistence and the matching boots as well. We also get the Legacy of the Master's gloves. Minsk's final build was pretty decent. He's a level 1 Ranger, level 3 Druid, level 1 Paladin, level 2 Warlock, level 1 Bard, level 2 Barbarian, and level 2 Fighter. His stats are pretty balanced across the board, but I have a plan to make him a very strong tank for our team. First, we grab the Ring of Regeneration. Next, we make our way into the secret area in Worm's Rock. Inside, we skip the Ansor fight and head straight for the Helmet of Baldur. This will stack with the ring for extra healing per turn. We then buy the Cloak of Displacement for more defense. Our last items for Minsk involve heading into the House of Hope that Raphael was talking about. Once inside, we sneak all the way through to the archive area. Now, with a simple dice roll check, we can steal some items undetected. We grab the Amulet of Greater Health and the Gauntlets of Hill Giant Strength. Both of these items will increase our stats significantly. Lastly, we pick up the Hell Dusk helmet and our friend Mole's contract she had with Raphael. We then escape without alerting any suspicion. Back at camp, we meet that annoying kid once more. Who knew she was a stalker? Turns out it wasn't the kid, it was Orin. She proposes that we should defeat Gortash first to steal his Netherstone, and then we can finally have a duel to claim the right of Baal's Chosen. Seems like a fair enough deal to me. We meet Gortash and he reveals that he knows Evan. He says we were part of the plan before Orin stepped in on our behalf, which is huge if true. He proposes we reunite as allies and take out Orin.
Together, we can still restore authority over the brain.
Who to trust and who to slay. When in doubt, I let Minsk make the decisions. This is a cheap strategy, but it is a good strategy. With the new gauntlets, Minsk has the strength required to pick up Gortash. While holding him, if you fast travel to another location, Gortash will also fast travel with you. Once we arrive at the new location, we then simply just yeet him off the edge. Not even an Archduke can survive that. With the second Netherstone in our possession, it was time to prepare for our duel. We rescue Volo once again, as his words of wisdom are always handy to have.
Wish you luck, my friend. And I hope that when I see you again, you'll be in one piece.
Up next, we meet someone Karlak mentioned all that time ago, Saravok. We prove our worth to Saravok by providing a hand of a person we have slain during our run.
Hello. I'm Gay.
I believe you will be the one to slay Orin. And when you do, remember Grandfather Saravok. Remember how he helped you. Return to visit him. And tell the blood-drenched tale of your victory.
Saravok informs us that he has a sacrifice prepared for us. We slay Valeria and accept our destiny.
Behold, Father Baal, your lost child, bathed anew. Arise, unholy assassin.
Sarevok helps us out and gives Evan an amulet which we can use to access the Temple of Baal, where Orin awaits us. We decide to head straight there. To skip this first combat encounter, I turn Evan invisible, and then we can simply walk past everyone undetected. Once Evan hit the waypoint near the temple, I just fast travel with the rest of the squad and we are reunited. At the door we are greeted by our good friend Skeleritas. He informs us that we did not even need to get the amulet from Sarevok, as he would have just snuck us in anyway. Oh well, everyone loves some good filler content. It was time to prepare for Orin. I take the best defensive gear from my whole party and place it on Evan. This was it. Time to duel.
The changeling stands no chance, fiendish one. Eviscerate her. Master, you are the chosen one.
Skeleritas then informs us that Baal himself is coming to meet us. We speak to Baal through the reflection in the blood, and they have come to give us our reward for slaying Orin. We roll a 3 and decline the gift, and when given a chance to turn it around, we roll another 3 and decline again. Baal then showcases his true power and puts an end to Evan. We came so close to finishing the story but failed at one of the last hurdles. It's a bitter pill to swallow.
Thou hast defied Baal, thy liege and father, and in doing so hast earned a place among champions and heroes. But alas, thy courage was in opposition to the divine cosmology that bound thee to the Lord of Murder. Thou art now faithless, godless, and doomed to wander the fugue plane for eternity. I will not permit that, though all the powers of life and death dictate that it should be so. I, too, still hold some power, and I invest a portion of it in thee, who hath challenged the gods and now liveth to tell of it. Thy fight is not over, and it is thy fight. For one who can look upon Baal and oppose him can survive any crisis. So rise, challenger of gods, and prepare for battle once more. Death will not claim thee whilst I endure. Today thou art born anew.
A genuine pleasure to meet you again, my friend.
Minsk had his doubts about you, little slayer, but Boo had none.
A hero has risen from a legacy of death.
With our new chance at life, we know exactly what we have to do.
You return, taint-blessed kinkiller, having committed the holiest of sins. For today, I meet the true definition of failure.
We won't take that disrespect, and we'll teach Sarevok a lesson he won't forget. We eliminate all his allies first. With our current setup, Sarevok's healing too much, as he heals when he lands hits. So we had to flee and rethink our strategy. I return with Minsk and Minthara. I cast Sanctuary on Minsk to prevent him from taking damage. With Minsk, I cast Moonbeam, which technically does not count as an attack when you move it each turn. This allows me to keep Sanctuary intact. I then hide Minthara, and Minsk gets to work. Moonbeam only lasts 10 turns, so I had to call Minthara back in so we could reset it, and eventually we finished off Sarevok, claiming the Sword of Chaos, our final upgrade. With all the nether stones and loose ends tied up, it was time to confront the Elder Brain. We set sail to the new world with our faithful crew. Here are the final builds of each of my characters. Feel free to pause the video if you'd like to have a more in-depth look at each of them. First battle in the final area. You can skip it by just casting the invisibility spell once more. I send Evan in alone and make my way down to the brine pool where we confront the brain. Using the nether stones, we attack the brain, and well, you should know by now how useless Evan is. Luckily, the Emperor comes to our rescue and pulls us to safety. The Emperor lets us know that only an Illithid would have the power needed to take down the brain, so we decide to just hand him the stones. Hopefully the Emperor is a trustworthy guy. The Emperor then absorbs Orpheus's power, and we make our way to the upper city. There seems to be quite a big time battle going on. Press on ahead to the nearby hall, where we are greeted by all the allies we have made throughout the story. We have Wolverine, Mole, Volo, and Nine Fingers Keen. After the reunion, we head out to the first battle in the upper city. Once more, we are able to utilize the invisibility spell to skip this fight. Who would have thought that that ring from Act 2 would be so pivotal to this run? For some reason towards the end of the area, I encountered a glitch where enemies couldn't see me, but it kept beginning combat with them. The game was stuck in this process, so I had to end my invisibility, then recast it to make it the rest of the way. We make it to the brain and climb our way up. If you're wondering about my allies, they are automatically teleported to Evan during this cutscene. This was it, the final battle.
The hamster that voyaged through wild space. The avenging exile. Nature's servant. Murder incarnate. You are spectacular specimen.
We We begin by making Minsk invisible and then calling forth our allies. Essentially, I wanted to get my whole team over to the portal and avoid combat altogether. So Minthara kept casting Sanctuary on everyone and the squad all met up near the crown. I was then able to use the Emperor to open the portal, with my allies being nearby to heal and protect him. Once inside, we have to defeat the Brain in 5 turns, which seems like a lot of time, but remember Merkel? My team is not built for large amounts of damage. Luckily for us, our little tiefling friend comes in clutch and gives us access to a spell called Rays of Fire. This can deal between 15 and 90 damage. This gives us the edge we need to rack up some damage early. We make good progress and are down to the last turn. The Brain destroys all of my team, but one man. Not just any man. Minsk of Rashomon.
I have missed this! The adventure, the danger, the kicking of butts!
It was never in doubt. For our final decision, we roll a 2 and command the Brain to destroy all the Mind Flayer tadpoles and itself. A noble act from Evan after the mayhem he has caused. We have saved Baldur's Gate and saved ourselves from becoming a Mind Flayer. We meet up with our allies before we all decide to part ways. But that is not the end of our crew. We reunite for one last celebration with Withers, the real MVP of the story. And with that, our journey is complete. So it turns out you can in fact beat Baldur's Gate 3 when every decision you make is left to a random dice roll. This was a really fun challenge, and I would recommend it to anyone who has played Baldur's Gate 3 before. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to see more challenges in the future. I'll see you next time.